Hi everybody, this is Abra from Miss C Photography, and I just wanted to go over some basics for using your DSLR camera. So that refers to the kind of sensor on your camera. If you have a DSLR camera, you're able to change the lenses. And when your goal with the DSLR, even though it shoots great photos in automatic, is to get to the point where you're able to do it in manual. When you're in automatic, the camera is making all the decisions for you besides where you point the camera at. When you're in manual, you are making all the decisions, and that is the goal. So to get there, though, you need to know the three basic principles, which is often referred to as the exposure triangle, because what your goal is to have the perfect exposure. You don't want to be overexposed or underexposed. So there's three different things in that exposure triangle that both help for you to achieve the perfect exposure. And they both have pros and cons. So you want to try to utilize the pros of all three and not get any of the cons of any of the three. So I'm going to go over the first one. The first one is the ISO or the ISO. And that is how much light falls on your camera's sensor. So this has to do with your camera body itself. It has nothing to do with the lens. In the olden days of film, you changed the ISO by the different films. You might even remember like the disc cameras that took the 110 discs, and you could usually get a 200, or if you wanted it a little darker, you'd get a 400. So that's the same principle, except that you change it on your camera. So the higher the number, the more light falls on your sensor. And the more light that falls on your camera's sensor means a brighter photo. The lower the number, the less light falls on your camera's photo. And the less on the camera, sensor. And the less light that falls on your camera's sensor makes a darker photo. So if you're taking photos in the middle of the day, you would want a lower ISO or ISO. If you're taking it in the evening or indoors, you'd want a higher ISO or ISO. However, there is some cons to it. And the con is the higher the ISO, the more grain or noise or artifacts you get. And those three terms are interchangeable. Some people call it noise, some people call it grain, some people call it artifacts. And depending upon what type of camera you have, whether you have a cropped sensor or a full frame sensor, will dictate how well it does in low light. So typically, cropped frames don't do as well as full framed or full sensors do. So I obviously have a full framed camera. So I can pretty much go up to about 3200 even, which is super high for an ISO. And that's about when I start getting grain. However, if you have a cropped sensor, you might even start noticing it around even 800. So you need to balance this so that you get just the right amount of light that you need without getting the grain. Unless, of course, you want grain. If you want your photo to look like an old-time photo, you can purposely have it grainy and then in editing change it to black and white. Or if you're photographing sand, you won't know the difference because it's grain, so you're not going to be able to tell. But again, the ISO or ISO is how much light falls on your camera's sensor. So not with the lens, has nothing to do with the lens, has to do with the camera body itself and how much light falls on your sensor. The higher the number, the more light is going to fall on your camera's sensor, which will make for a brighter, lighter photo, but you will have more grain or artifacts or noise. The lower the number on the ISO or ISO, the less light falls on your camera's sensor. So it's a darker photo, but there's little to no noise or grain or artifacts. So you have a sharper image. So I hope that helps, and I will be back with another video on the other two parts of the exposure triangle. And again, this is Abra from Miss Z Photography. Please check me out at www.misszphotography, that's all one word, .com. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.